So, quick disclaimer before we get in this run. This was an offline run I did, and I messed up the timer midway, meaning that I actually overlaid a fake timer I recorded after the fact, just for your viewing pleasure, and since there was no commentary on the original video, I am doing this post-commentary. Okay, so, this is The Hobbit on PC, released in 2003, and it's a pretty fun speedrun. As you might be seeing here, I am currently doing some movement where I slash, then jump, as well as some long jumps. That's all to help me get around faster. And right off the bat, what you see is a slope boost right there. So that's a lot to take in right off the bat. Luckily, we have a bit more of a relaxing level here, but that slope boost was a technique where if you jump into a slope and you perform a jump attack, when the slope is the right angle, you can actually launch yourself very high upward. So, during this commentary, I'll be going over some of the tricks like that, as well as some of the good things and bad things I did during this run. And starting off with bad things, I hit a part of the slope there that slid me down. So this is actually quite a slow, unexpected party for my doing, which is the name of this level. I could be about 2 seconds or more ahead here if it was going well, but unfortunately I messed it up a little bit, and that is how it is. So instead of being, -2, I'm just -0.1, which is still not that bad. Okay, so here in Roast Mud, there's actually some jank on the PC version exclusive, where if you walk into walls with certain angles with Bilbo, you can just kind of clip through them magically. And to do that, by doing that, we can actually reach the end trigger that is located behind the level, which is a recurring theme in the speedrun, end triggers that are located behind kind of where the level starts. And again, what we're doing here is we're slope boosting out of bounds and going to an end trigger that is behind the level. So that was pretty okay. I failed to get up the log there once, which cost me a little bit of time, but still a pretty average start, I'd say. Nothing amazing, but it is how it is. Anyway, this is Overhill and Underhill. Unfortunately, unlike the other levels we've seen so far, we can't just skip this entire level outright, but it's not all unfortunate because it allows us to display some good movement. And that is what a lot of this level is all about. And as I say that, you see me messing up my movement and grabbing that vine too low, which means I can't grab the ledge. There I hit a cutscene trigger that is located just like, it's supposed to be on the top of the ledge, but it extends downward a little bit so you can jump into it and avoid going around up the ledge. And it's all pretty cool. Coming up right here, we will be going around a text box trigger that will tell Bilbo to talk about the stone giants throwing rocks. And because we skip that, the stone giants will start throwing rocks right away, because otherwise they don't start throwing rocks while the text box is on the screen. So I had pretty good RNG there, not the greatest. The RNG being in how long it might take the stone giants to throw that rock down and knock over the bridge. There is actually a skip that allows you to skip that part with the stone giants dropping the rock, but because of some weird CPU specific weirdness in the game that is a lot to go over in this video, I can't reliably do that on my setup. So here's another instance where going into a wall at a certain angle allows us to clip into it, and by doing this we can actually skip this segment of the level where you go through these caves and you collect gear parts to fix that gearbox to open the door, because instead we just go through the door. And that was a pretty fast clip. It can take a little while to get through there sometimes, and it went quite fast for me. So upcoming now is a series of kind of tricky jumps. Normally you're supposed to go around, but we're speedrunners, we go straight through. And the big one upcoming here is called Bean Island Jump, which is where we jump from this little island shaped like a bean all the way to the other side and just barely grab the ledge. That's actually a really tight jump here on the PC version. And yeah, don't be surprised if you see speedrunners miss that a lot, but fortunately I got it in this run. Otherwise you probably wouldn't be watching this because the run would be dead. Alright, so we're nearing the end of the level here. Quite a long level. So far the execution was decent. The movement was not amazing, but the trick execution was good, and that means that I will still probably be saving time here. So for the last part of this level, We skip climbing the vines there, and we do a slope boost to talk to the dwarf up on that ledge. I forgot his name. And by talking to him, he moves our position to him, meaning we actually skip an invisible wall there. And that's the first time you'll see a gold split here. You'll be seeing many more, but that is mainly because when I re-record at the splits, I was recording them with in-game time, or with real time I mean, which includes the loads, and normally when I do runs, we use an auto splitter that has in-game time. However, since, like I mentioned at the start of this, I re-record at the timer for the sake of viewing, I had to use real time, and my golds are messed up in real time. I figured that out, so yeah, not all of these golds that look like golds are actually going to be golds. So we didn't miss too much there. We did a small skip by jumping to that little spider web hanging from the top, and that's pretty easy on the PC version. But coming up now is one of the bigger things, which is the Riddles in the Dark skip. And the way we do this skip is we just climb this ledge, and if you climb it, you clip out of bounds, and you can proceed to jump over to another area of the level. And this area is actually, normally there's this huge room you have to loop around with elevators and all that kind of stuff, but since the exit to that room and the entrance to that room are so close together, and we can traverse them using out of bounds, we can save a whole bunch of time. And the rest of the levels played quite normally. Fun fact, that little skip you just saw there was actually found by me on the console version, probably around 5 or 6 years ago. It was the first big skip I discovered, so it's a little bit nostalgic, and I'm happy it's still relevant in the console as well as the PC speedrun. So I'm actually up against quite a good split here. My PB and previous world record split here was quite good in movement, and I'm actually going to beat it by just a little bit. So this will be a real gold because my PB was also a gold. And I didn't feel like my movement was too amazing, but I guess the time speaks for itself, and I save a little of time. So upcoming is Flies and Spiders. This is one of the cooler levels in the entire speedrun, in my opinions. There's a lot of out-of-bounds stuff. Starting off right here, we go out of bounds and we cross through the right side section of the level to skip a whole bunch of stuff. Now, there's a bunch of loading triggers in this level that we'll be abusing, and I was meant to get on that rock in one try. That was a small failure there. That cost me a little bit of time. But yeah, there's a lot of loading triggers to load next parts of the levels that we'll have to hit in proper order here. So, we go out of bounds again shortly after coming inbounds, and we're going to keep going out of bounds with this movement. Now we're going to jump here, and we actually jump through a loading screen trigger, or a loading trigger that we need to hit, and after we hit that loading trigger, we're going to go right back out of bounds so we can go to the next part of the level. And here's another rare miss. I mess up the slope boost. Luckily I don't fall down, so I get to try it again. The slope boost is quite easy to me, and we hit another loading trigger. All of that may look simple, but that is all very execution tight, trust me. Anyway, some more out of bounds stuff, and we can actually keep going out of bounds here to go to the end of the level, but instead we're going to cut through the inbound section and boost right back out because it's just a slight bit faster. Now, interestingly, normally you have to fight a big spider boss at the end of this level. However, there was a trigger discovered out of bounds right there that we can navigate to. Now, I'm actually quite good at this skip right here, but it just so happens that, unfortunately, I miss one slope boost here, which is going to cost me 8 seconds for my jump slash meter in the bottom left to recharge again. So I'm going to have to get this on my second try. And this is one of those levels where the end trigger is right behind the start of the level, but this is actually one of the most difficult skips in the game. Luckily, after missing it once, I still get it relatively quickly. I do lose some time, but it is what it is. So far, the major time losses are really overkill. I could have saved probably 5 seconds had I had much cleaner movement, and missing that barrel skip obviously cost me 8 seconds versus a perfect one. Now, in a warm welcome here, we're going to jump out of bounds once again, where for some reason there's this big extending invisible floor, and we're going to go right on the edge of this invisible floor, and where it falls off to the water. And by going into this rock throwing mode and doing some rock throws while whipping our camera around, we can move forward while throwing rocks, which is going to push us off and just let us slow fall right into the water, because that's what it does when you go off a ledge. And for some reason, when you fall into the water just the right amount, it starts pushing you backwards. There's a lot of specific stuff here involving how much you move the cursor, so that's why you saw me doing some very slight adjustments there, so I had to do that so I wouldn't drown. It's all very tricky, but I did end up getting it. It could have been a little bit faster, but it was still a bit faster than my PB. This is actually a part where we have to wait for quite a while. As you might be able to tell, we're slowly getting pushed back, and we want to get pushed back far enough that we're just outside of the water so we don't drown, and then we let go and we fall right into the end trigger. Below the level is actually where normally all the other inside the interiors of other rooms in the level are located physically. So by going out of bounds there and moving our character, moving Bilbo to that exact spot, we can fall into that room before it's loaded and just hit that and trigger. Here comes another very hard skip, but luckily it's a thing. We are going to go out of bounds here in Inside Info and completely ignore Smaug the Dragon. By clipping into this corner, this is very tight. It's very easy to clip too much and shoot out of bounds, but I get through very quickly. Now we're going to inch across the edge of the out of bounds area here. We're going to align ourselves super specifically and do a long jump attack, and we're going to hit it and trigger there. That's actually a very hard jump because there's an invisible wall in front of the end trigger that you have to jump around at a very specific angle. Fortunately, this level, the Gathering of the Clouds, is quite easy for the speedrun. By jumping in that wall in a very specific way, it's actually quite generous, that one. We can just go straight through it, and we can proceed to the room that has the big door where the Arkenstone is, and behind the Arkenstone is the end trigger of the level. So once again, we're going to jump out of bounds. That was a little bit slow. You can usually jump out of bounds there in 1 or 2 jumps, and it took me 3, but it was still fine. And we're going to go across the edge all the way out of bounds, behind the door where the Arkenstone is located, and just pick it up. And here I got a bit nervous, and I accidentally purchased some rocks. Doesn't matter, but funny mistake. And here we are, already 12 minutes in, the final level of the speedrun, the Gathering of the Clouds. Yeah, so there's time to be saved over my personal best here still. And spoiler, this isn't going to be the most perfect execution of this level, but I'll still be saving time. So starting off, we jump on those little planks and we jump out of bounds using a slow boost and a slash boost, which is the slashing and jumping thing to go faster you see me do a lot. And we go all the way around to this next section. Now ideally we want to go over to our left where you just saw us, but that part of the level isn't loaded. So what we do next is we jump down, back inbounds, and hit this loading trigger very specifically so those enemies and Corwin there load, but they don't start killing each other. And then we perform something called a clip warp, which is a very interesting mechanic that unfortunately we only see once in the PC speedrun, but more times in the console speedrun. But it is when the game keeps a safe position for Bilbo about every 2 seconds that you are standing on the ground for. So what we actually did is while we were on top of the ledge there, we stood still for about 2 seconds, or I mean, we walked over the ground for about 2 seconds. So the game recognized that as our safe spot, and from there on out, we kept jumping before our safe spot reset. So our safe spot would stay up there, and from that point on, we bugged out Bilbo by clipping into the ladder a certain way, and the game freaked out, thought to put us back at the safe spot, so we were back on that ledge after loading the trigger that we wanted to load for the next area, and we can continue the level. So, yeah, we missed some stuff while I was talking about all that, but that was an important bit to talk about. Coming up now, we have a very cool rock throw. At the other end of this bridge, there's a barrel that if you hit it, it will trigger a cutscene. And for some reason I had some trouble like going into target view mode there. Cost me a couple seconds. But yeah, we can actually, instead of going around to hit that barrel, we can do a big Kobe and hit it from this side, saving us a bunch of time in having to go around. And here we can do a simple jump out of bounds, a little more tight than it looks, kind of scary. And then proceed to hug the edge here And we're going to do a little bit of movement and eventually get to the final barrel you have to hit to beat the game. And that's going to play the ending cutscene, and our speedrun is done with a 14:55:36. Now, that is the real time. The actual time without loads is a 14:50, so 14 minutes 50 seconds. And yeah, that was the whole run. I hope my commentary was nice. Unfortunately, this was an offline run, so couldn't do live commentary, and the splits aren't entirely accurate, but it is accurately going to be retimed, and you will be able to see the lead on the video and the time on the speedrun leaderboard. So yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.